1 second. Sorry about that. Because of a banking issue, I had to clear my history on my web browser, and that meant that I can't log on to anything, and I'm trying to remember all my passwords. First world problem. Anyways, I'm Skip Alzheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films, and I try to propagate the streaming to places like Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, where else? How many other T's do we have? Post, Tumblr, Facebook, etc. There's a lot, of which there's handfuls of people here and there, and most of you are on YouTube, which is great, and I appreciate that. But if you're watching from another social media thing or from the AV Geeks website, hey, thanks for tuning in. The advantage to YouTube is that I see comments and other people see comments. All these other social media things, I think I can see Twitch, but that's about it. Anywho, we just watched some amateur footage, well, probably semi-amateur footage of San Francisco's Golden Gate Park and the Japanese tea garden there, which is really beautiful. We've been there a couple of times. I have friends who are kind of all around that park, and so we've visited many times. And it's close to an Amoeba Records, which is really an awesome place if you have not been on the West Coast. All right, let's watch Castle Films. They had a series of films that they made for home use, really. And the idea was that somebody who had a projector who were showing home movies, or they were an amateur filmmaker, they could go to their camera store and they could buy other things, selected shorts, newsreels, cut down features, cut down cartoons, things like that. So this is part of their sports parade, Big Fish. Enjoy.
We're out for fishing in a big way, and first we'll cast our bait for tarpon, those big fish that inhabit the rivers and bays of Mexico and Central America. They're big, all right, ranging on the average of over 150 pounds, but the records show that some have been caught weighing nearly 250 pounds. Here he comes, and there's still plenty of fight left in him. Well, we're not doing so badly. He's a whopper to put with the day's catch. And here they come ashore. 1,000 pounds of victory for us. This is fishing by the wholesale, and it takes heavy nets to corral these monsters of the deep. Up they come, on their way to the canning factory and maybe to your table. Not one in the catch weighs less than 600 pounds, and it's not a fish story to say that once a 1,500-pounder was captured. That's a lot of tuna. Into the safety pond they go. 10,000 pounds of tuna in a day's catch. We're off the east coast of Florida with a host of other boats out for those jumping, battling sailfish and marlins. The bait is a whole fish, for the sailfish are heavy eaters. It is dropped from a rod and reel or swung away from the boat from the outrigger. They are fighters, too. Like lightning, they take the bait. Out of the water they jump, trying to throw the hook from their mouths. It's a sport for real fishermen with strong muscles and plenty of endurance. Boat number 5 is the first to have luck, and here is the prize. But the fight goes on. Another line tightens. Another battle between man and fish is on. It's summer off the Florida coast, and the warm waters of the Gulf Stream lure such monsters as these to the bait. Watch him pull and jump and tug. What a tough one that fisherman is battling. It actually took over an hour to land this one, but in this picture we'll bring him in a minute, and he's a dandy. But what's the difference? They're big enough to go after with a different kind of bait, and here it is. There she blows. Around the waters of the 7 seas, but we're now in the South Pacific and having luck. This one measured 72 feet and weighed 85 tons. The crew is pulling him in. Let's see what's happening on the port side. A 1,000-pound stranger, a sunfish, wondering what it's all about. But he's useless as food or for anything else, so we let him go after a warning. Further aft, we discover another stranger, evidently after our cat, too, a hammerhead shark, and he comes aboard. Now for a whale of a thrill. Out in a small boat for the big sea mammals. One swish of a whale's tail could break the small craft into splinters. But the men know their job, and on they come. It's dangerous work, whether you like it or not. Enough for today. So while they are being towed back to shore, they are pumped full of air to make them float. One man a rowboat is enough to tow the whale ashore. But it takes real power to drag him up. And that's the end of a big fish story. Here's bait for the biggest fish in any sea. But after all, we're out to bring in enough for dinner. And this time, it's salmon. No time for line and sinker here. These fellows want mass production, so great heavy nets do the job. These are all over 30 pounds, some as high as 50. It's a fisherman's paradise. In comes the silver horde, hundreds of shiny, thrashing salmon, so many that they nearly sink the boat. We've loaded 3 tons of salmon already. We went out for big fish, and we got 'em.
I think that that background music was so intense that you could narrate anything, and it would just be the super exciting, rollicking event. It was way over the top. So yeah, that was a lot of big fish, big ocean fishing. Some people made comments in the YouTube comment thread about, well, we don't have it as good anymore because of overfishing and because of other climate issues. So this rollicking look at fishing back in the 40s now serves as a, wow, look how things used to be, and can be a little depressing, or maybe kind of a reminder of like, oh, yeah, you know, there's not an unlimited supply of fish. We have to figure out a way to balance our fishing. Anyhow, beyond the downer message, this is Women's History Month, and I have been challenged to show at least one film about women's history a day, and we'll see how I can do. I think I can. This next film is a reenactment film, and this is part of a series that CBS News did in the 60s, and I think a couple in the early 70s. And this is the You Are There series, and it's narrated by, or introduced by, Walter Cronkite. Then you have other CBS News correspondents who are there at the event, and it's like it's a real trial or a real event, and they're covering it. And in this case, it is a trial. And I know some of you are had just seen the murder, I don't know who that guy is. Anyways, South Carolina trial verdict. So you're set for another trial, and this is the trial of Susan B. Anthony. So enjoy.
Rochester, New York. Miss Susan B. Anthony, American citizen, is being arrested for a felony committed on the previous election day. Her crime? She voted.
I'm in your custody, sir. I trust that you are well armed in case I should try anything desperate.
June 18th, 1873. The trial of Susan B. Anthony. You are there.
Suffrage, the right to vote, has been granted to every citizen, except women. Without the right to vote and the political power that goes with it, women have virtually no rights at all. To protest their merely ornamental citizenship, increasing numbers of women have organized and are openly demanding that the hand that bakes the biscuits and rocks the cradle also be allowed to cast the ballot. Foremost among them is Susan B. Anthony, one-time Quaker school teacher and famous abolitionist. In the last national election, she voted and was arrested promptly. Today is June 16, 1873, the day before her trial. David Culhane is at Susan B. Anthony's home in Rochester, New York. All things are as they were then, except...
You are there.
With Miss Anthony is her attorney, the Honorable Henry R. Selden, an old personal friend and a strong supporter of her
I'll
cause.
call you as our first witness.
Miss Anthony,
Yes,
why did you vote? You knew you'd be arrested, didn't you?
it did occur to me, yes. Each state has laws that deny the vote to women. To fight them one by one, state by state, would take forever. I thought that by voting in a national election and appearing in a federal court, a test case, and winning, I could have all of those laws declared unconstitutional.
Then you admit you voted illegally.
No, that has yet to be proved in court.
When I testify tomorrow, my authority shall be the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. All persons, not all masculine persons, all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States. And all citizens, not all citizens who wear trousers, all citizens regardless of race or color or previous condition of servitude have the right to vote.
But that refers to slavery.
So it does.
Now, look,
And so
Susan,
do I. To be governed without one's consent is slavery. If this law consents to that, then it is a bad law.
It would appear that few of your colleagues in the women's rights movement agree with you.
That is not so.
How do you explain, then, that none of the leaders have spoken out in your defense? Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Will they be here for your trial?
They would be here if they could. They have other pressing affairs. Mrs. Stanton has domestic responsibilities, a family, a child. Otherwise, she would most certainly be here. She's one of my closest friends.
Isn't the real reason that they feel you are too militant?
Now, please, no more questions. Susan, as your attorney, I'm afraid I must insist that you
As
stop.
my attorney, not as my guardian.
Thank you, Miss Anthony.
Oh, I'm sorry, Henry. I seem to have so few friends I can't afford to turn against the one who is most loyal. Look at me, Henry. I'm no Joan of Arc. If the movement needed a martyr, I'd be a poor choice. All I can do is scold people. I could be convicted, you know. Oh, yes, I could. And if I lose, the movement could be discredited and ridiculed. Well, I can't blame Mr. Stanton and the others for not wanting to share that with me. Everything depends on what I say to that jury tomorrow. Doesn't it?
That's right, Susan. Now, with juries, especially for a woman, demeanor is important. Be forthright, but not bold.
And shall I cast my eyes down, too, and simper?
All right, Susan, all right. Testify any way you wish, but please, not in that red shawl.
But I always wear this.
Yes, I know, and it's become notorious. Red, that... it gives you the character of a revolutionary.
But that's what I am. I am as opposed to tyranny as Patrick Henry was. And as I like to think, Mrs. Patrick Henry was.
It is June 17th. The case of the United States of America versus Susan B. Anthony is now being tried in the U.S. Circuit Court, Northern District of New York. The Honorable Ward Hunt presiding. We switch you now to the town of Canandaigua, near Rochester, to the trial already in progress, and to George Herman.
The defense has finished its opening statements and is preparing to call its first witness as soon as the luncheon recess is over. The supporters of Miss Anthony say that the government has had the trial moved to Canandaigua from Rochester because it would be easier to impanel a jury here which would be more hostile to Miss Anthony. Many of the spectators are men, occupying seats they say they would ordinarily surrender to the ladies, who now must, if they so desire equality, learn to do without such polite attentions. Some of Miss Anthony's supporters say they don't mind standing up for their cause and are doing just that in the back of the courtroom. Bob Barr is there.
With me are three women, all active in the women's rights movement. Miss Everhart, you're a lawyer. What, in your opinion, is the significance of this case?
First, let me correct you. I am a lawyer only in the sense that I read for the law in my father's offices, and I am fully qualified for the bar. But I am forbidden to practice solely on the grounds that I am a woman. Now, my legal opinion? If Susan Anthony is acquitted, every female will feel as free to vote as she does. And they'll have to pass an amendment to the Constitution permitting it, or be prepared to arrest every woman in the country.
Miss Voss, you're a teacher, and you were recently discharged for your women's rights activities.
I spoke out at a school board meeting. I'm afraid I gave them fits. I told them it was unfair for women teachers to be paid only $10 a month, while men were being paid $40 for teaching the same children, and didn't have to sweep out the schoolroom besides.
And you were dismissed for that?
Well, I called the board president an old mini-hammer.
Equal opportunity, equal pay. Mrs. Clemenger, what do you think the vote could mean for married women?
Dignity, a sense of worth. For some women, survival. You see, legally, a wife is not really her husband's partner. She's his property. And if he's a brute, which, bless heaven, mine is not, he can beat her, betray her, desert her, cast her aside, and then come back and take away her earnings, savings, goods, and even her children. The laws permit this because men voted to pass those laws. Susan Anthony is only trying to give an equal vote to their victims.
For which, if she's convicted, she can get 3 years in jail. Miss Everhart, a legal opinion again. What do you think of her chances?
I think her case rests entirely on her, how well she defends herself when she testifies.
Suffragists are now claiming that Judge Hunt, like District Attorney Richard Crowley, was handpicked by political bosses because of his outspoken bias against women's suffrage.
Your Honor, I propose to call Miss Susan B. Anthony.
Objection. She is not competent to testify on her own behalf.
Sustained.
But, Your Honor...
On the grounds that she is not qualified to testify on points of law.
Exception, Your Honor. I must take an exception.
The clerk will note it.
But, Your Honor, if
it is
please...
clear from your opening argument that you intend to draw out testimony involving the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. That, sir, is law, and outside the competence of this witness.
Respectfully, Your Honor's ruling denies my client a day in court. Denies the jury the right to hear her motive for the act for which she has been accused.
Sir, this court is the judge of the law and what constitutes it, as the jury is the judge of the facts. Your client's motives do not constitute facts, sir, and are therefore not admissible in evidence.
Your Honor, I would...
The court's ruling stands.
They're not going to let me speak. They're afraid of what I might say.
A condemnation under the circumstances would only add one more weighty reason to those I have already given as to why women need the aid of the ballot for their own protection. Thanking Your Honor, gentlemen of the jury, I submit my case.
This court will recess for 1 hour.
1 hour.
Mr. Selden has just completed his closing argument for the defense. He's spoken steadily for more than 3 hours, and his client's fate is now up to the jury.
Thank you, Henry, for that magnificent defense. If all men had the heart to match your eloquence, I'd have no fear of the 12 in that jury box.
I'd feel better about the jury if the judge had allowed you to testify.
I feel certain that he's called this recess to spoil the effect of Mr. Selden's arguments.
I must confess that I am disappointed that I was not permitted to convince the jury that what I did was the act of a patriotic citizen and not that of some crazy
dried-up, bitter old maid.
I'm sorry. I don't recall the name or the mammoth.
Well, my name has a Mrs. in front of it, I'll tell you that. And if yours had, I don't think you'd be out agitating against heavenly law.
Madam, I'm only trying to amend the Constitution, not the Holy Bible.
Which sacred book declares that man and wife are one flesh, and one flesh means one vote. What you are doing is wicked, setting man against wife. In any decent home, the mister does the voting as the Lord intended. Let me tell you, Missy, if I get the vote, I'll refuse to exercise it.
That is a privilege that your husband already has. I'm sure that his esteem for you would increase if you could vote, and out of respect for him you refrained. That would be like renewing your marriage vows every election day, and there would be rejoicing in heaven and in Washington at the same time.
You are a disgrace to your gender.
And you, madam, are a ninny hammer.
This is Hal Walker with District Attorney Crowley. Mr. Crowley, why is there so much opposition to women's suffrage?
I shall be candid, sir. In a man's hand, the ballot is a tool, a political tool. In Milady's hand, it's apt to be a dust cloth. She'd be forever flicking it about, like trying to clean things here, rearrange things there, putting this thing in the attic, that thing in the cellar. Flick, flick, flick.
You mean they'd be reformers?
Would they not? They'd have females in the professions. They'd have equal wages for the factory women. There'd be no children in the factory at all. And that Anthony woman, she's a bearcat for temperance. She'd level all our saloons and have every man jack of us wearing a pretty white ribbon.
Sir?
Lily of the Valley, just a touch. Frankly, neither party wishes to embrace the women. Politically, I mean. Because, as a class, they can't be depended upon.
To vote along party lines, do you mean?
Just so. Now, you take the slave. The Republicans gave him the ballot along with his freedom. Gratitude tells him where to vote. And the immigrant, naturalized and enrolled in the Democratic Party with the same dip of the pen, down the gangplank and into the polling booth. He knows who to thank. But the women, 7 million votes with no political experience or education and no party allegiance. The thought is staggering politically.
Mightn't such independence be a good thing?
Well, if it were left to the jury to decide, they might decide so. But there would be no petticoat vote. Why, every office holder in the country would feel panicky.
Just a moment, sir. You said if it were up to the jury. What do you mean by if?
Oh, did I say that? Slip of the tongue, of course. Excuse me. I must go back to court.
All rise.
This is the crucial moment for Susan B. Anthony. Her fate is up to the jury now.
Gentlemen of the jury, here is what you are charged to consider. The defendant stands indicted under the Act of Congress of 1870, which makes it an offense for any person to knowingly vote without having the right to vote. The defense insists that she has such a right, and has cited the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution of the United States. If the 15th Amendment had contained the word sex, the argument of the defendant would hold. The word nowhere appears, and so the argument falls.
But, Your Honor, I have...
Upon this evidence, then, there is no question for the jury. And therefore, it is directed to find a verdict of guilty.
Your Honor, respectfully, but most forcefully, I submit that a verdict of guilty is surely a matter for the jury to decide. Your Honor's direction is one that no court has the power to make in a criminal case.
Take the verdict, clerk.
Your Honor, I insist
Gentlemen
that...
of the jury, hearken to your verdict. You say you find the defendant guilty of the offense whereof she stands indicted, and so say you all.
I ask the clerk to poll the jury.
Denied. Gentlemen of the jury, you are discharged.
We're waiting for Judge Hunt. Last night he denied a defense motion for a new trial, and nothing remains now but the formality of sentencing.
We did all that we could, Susan. All that we could.
You did anyway, Henry. There's no more for me to do but to stand up and be sentenced. Odd, isn't it? I started out to free all women, and I end up by making one more prisoner.
All rise. The court is now in session. The prisoner will stand.
Has the prisoner anything to say why sentence should not be pronounced?
Yes, Your Honor, I have many things to say. For your ordered verdict of guilty has trampled underfoot the vital principles of our government. You have degraded not only me, but every member of my sex, from the station of a citizen to that of a subject.
The court cannot listen to a rehearsal of arguments which the prisoner's counsel has already consumed 3 hours in presenting.
May it please Your Honor, I am not arguing. I am simply supplying the statement Your Honor requested of me. Your denial of my citizen's right to vote is the denial of my right of consent as one of the governed, the denial of my right of representation as one of the taxed, the denial of my right to a trial by a jury of my peers, my equals. Therefore, the denial of my sacred rights to life, liberty, property, and the right...
The court will not allow another word.
But Your Honor will not deny me this one poor privilege of protest. May it please Your Honor to remember that since the day of my arrest, this is the first time that I have been allowed one word in defense in front of a judge or jury of my peers.
The court must insist. The prisoner has been tried according to the established forms of law.
Yes, Your Honor, but by forms of law all made by men, executed by men, in favor of men and against women. Only yesterday, that same man-made law declared it a crime to give a cup of cold water or a crust of bread or a night's shelter to a panting fugitive slave as he was tracking his way to Canada, and every man or woman in whose veins coursed one drop of human sympathy violated that wicked law and was justified in so doing.
No, the court will not allow another word. It orders the prisoner to sit down.
When I was brought into this court, before Your Honor, I had hoped for justice. But failing even to get a jury not of my peers, I asked not for leniency from your hands, but rather for the full rigor of the law.
The prisoner will stand up.
The prisoner will rise.
The sentence of this court is that you pay a fine of $100 and the costs of the prosecution.
This is a surprise, this unexpected leniency. It suggests the government fears making a martyr of Miss Anthony and hopes that if she accepts an easy penalty, she'll be confessing guilt.
May it please Your Honor, but I shall never pay $1 of your unjust penalty. All the stock and trade that I possess is a $10,000 debt, incurred in publishing my newspaper, the sole purpose of which was to educate all women to do precisely what I have done. Rebel against the man-made, unjust, unconstitutional forms of law that tax, fine, imprison, and hang women while they deny them the right of representation in the government. And I shall earnestly and persistently continue to urge all women to the practical recognition of that old revolutionary maxim. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God.
Susan B. Anthony never paid the fine. She never went to jail. And she never got the vote. Not for herself, anyway. But for the rest of her life, she and the women's rights movement she led continued the fight for equal suffrage by amending rather than reinterpreting the Constitution. Finally, in 1920, 14 years after her death, her courageous efforts paid off. The 19th Amendment to the Constitution gave the vote to the women of America. It was known then, and still is, as the Susan B. Anthony Amendment. What sort of a day was it? A day like all days, filled with those events which alter and illuminate our times. And you were there.
What's fascinating, let me stop this real quick. What's fascinating to me is I try to do some research online to see if there's any more information about this production. And IMDb fails. They list this was made in 71, but they don't really list the cast, which was phenomenal. I mean, Colleen Dewhurst, and then all these other character actors. Really fascinating. And so this was made for television. It was educational. Then it was made, as you saw, it was shot to video, and then they did a kinescope, and they distributed film copies to schools. The other interesting thing is that CBS News did this in 1955, and so this was a remake that had updated actors, and so it's interesting they redid it in 71. All right, it's kind of becoming spring here, even though it's probably going to snow again. So we had a thunderstorm, and generally in North Carolina, if there's a thunderstorm in the winter, then within 10 days we get snow, and it looks like it's forecast for snow in about 10 days. So, but that does not keep the robins from showing up. So there's a lot of robins that have been in everybody's yard yelling at squirrels and other animals, and this is a film about that. This is Robin Redbreast. Enjoy.
It is early spring. Flowers will soon be in bloom. Already, pussy willows are showing their fuzzy coats. About the time winter snows are melting, robins begin flying back north from their winter homes. Father robin always comes first. You may see him with his bright red breast sitting on a fence post, or in the early morning, you may hear him singing high up in a tree. Father robin finds a good place for a home, with plenty of water and plenty of food. Mother robin arrives a little later, and soon the fields and forests are filled with the songs of these best-known North American birds. When the warm days of spring come on, the robins begin building their nests. To start with, Father robin hunts for grass, strong, dry grass. and carries it to a good, safe place in the tree. As he builds the nest, he shapes it with his body, with his wings, and his tail. Mother robin does her share of the work. Both robins make trip after trip, gathering the grass. They carry it in their beaks. See how Mother Robin drops the grass into the nest and works it into shape. Sometimes robins plaster the inside of the nest with mud. They press the mud into the grass, and this makes a strong, well-built nest, shaped like a bowl. 1 week later, Mother is sitting on the nest, while Father is singing nearby. Look, there are 4 eggs in the nest. 4 pale blue robin eggs. Whenever Mother Robin leaves the nest, Father Robin sits on the eggs, keeping them warm. For eggs must be kept warm if they're to hatch. For 2 weeks, day and night, Mother and Father take turns keeping the eggs warm all the time. One baby robin has just hatched, and another egg is hatching. See the hole the baby inside is picked in one shell? Now there are 2 baby robins. Their eyes are still closed, but their mouths are wide open. Soon there will be 4 babies. Mother Robin spends much of her time keeping the nest clean. But look, there are only 3 babies. Did one fall out, or did a cat take it? Father and Mother Robin busily care for the 3 that are left. Baby robins need a lot of food. Earthworms are good food for them. What a big, wide mouth. Now the robin babies are a little older. Mother Robin divides a worm between 2 of them, but the 3rd will have to wait. And here comes Father Robin. And now the 3rd baby at last gets his share. Father Robin nestles carefully over the young birds to keep them warm. It has been 2 weeks now since the babies were hatched. How their feathers have grown. They need more and more food. Father and Mother Robin work all day long. Into the wide mouths goes the food that helps the young robins to grow big and strong. It is a few days later. The babies are still growing. Their feathers are growing too. As Mother Robin is watching nearby, she sees something. It's a big cat prowling among the trees. The babies don't know they're in danger. But the cat goes to the very tree where the young robins are. Now, Father Robin is excited. Up climbs the cat, coming closer and closer. For a moment longer, Father Robin watches, and then suddenly he flies straight at the cat. And now he dives at him. The cat has had enough for this time. The young robins have grown so much that the nest is crowded. One big baby finds more room by climbing on top of Brother Robin, and that's not very comfortable for the one below. Today, 2 of the robins have left the nest and are exploring the branches about them. Brother Robin is left all alone. He's not sure that his wings will carry him. Gradually, he picks up courage, although he may sit for hours on the branch beside the nest. He may even sleep here for the night. This one has found a place among the leaves. When young robins are about, cats should be kept indoors. And here's another of the babies. After a while, young robins will have redbreasts, like their parents. This one doesn't know how to get its own food yet, but his parents are not far away. And Mother Robin keeps bringing him worms. Before long, the young robins are old enough to find food for themselves. Earthworms are their favorite food, and they never seem to get enough of them. When days are warm, robins like to bathe. Father Robin takes a shower by splashing water over himself, while baby robin takes his bath in a nearby pool. This young robin is preening his feathers. Preening helps to give the robin a fine, clean coat. Isn't this a nice place to rest? And there's plenty of food nearby. Robins eat many kinds of berries and fruit. Besides berries and fruit, and worms their favorite food, robins may eat grasshoppers, caterpillars, beetles, and other insects. The worms, insects, and berries that a young robin eats in just one day may weigh more than the baby robin itself. How the robins have grown. This one looks almost as large as its mother. See how fluffy his feathers are, and what a strong bill he has. Now, the young robins are old enough to take care of themselves. They have learned how to fly and how to find food. Look at this. Mother and Father Robin are building a second nest. Robins sometimes raise 2 or 3 broods in a year, and they build a new nest for each brood. When the second brood is hatched, Mother and Father Robin must begin all over again to care for the nest and bring food to their young ones. By the time the first frost has come in autumn, the robins have begun to flock together. Soon, they are ready to fly away to a warmer climate where they will live through the winter. But, though they go south now, they will return next spring to start new homes once again.
Friend James Brill narrating. He was Encyclopedia Britannica narrator. Even before Encyclopedia Britannica, there were other film companies he did things for, like Irpy. So this next film is, again, part of that series that I've been showing several films from, the New Horizons series made by Pan American Films. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Pan American Airlines. And these films, I forgot to say, like, one of the places that they would show them is on a plane. That was the way that they would fill in the time, is they would show TV shows, they would show edited movies, they would show news, and then they would show promotional material. And this is one of the ways they could do it. Now, what's interesting for, with this particular copy is I think it was a couple of films ago, we saw a really amazing focus leader. This is a more complete version of that focus leader, and I'm going to hopefully try to find a complete, because it's awesome. And this is awesome because traditionally a focus leader is not meant for the public to watch. Like, it's meant for the projectionist. The projectionist watches it and then, focuses, and then when you get to 2, you stop the projector. So what happens is then, when you're ready to present, you start the projector and it fades up. So the audience is not supposed to see a countdown. They're not supposed to see the focus leader or any of that. But I have a feeling that this was meant to be shown for general audiences, and like the projectionist usually, I think, was doing this on the fly. So here is New Horizons, Uruguay. Enjoy.
This is a focus leader. Do your movies look like this? Do your soundtracks sound like this? Or like this? If so, you need this. A focus leader. First, set your lens so that these lines are sharp and clear on all parts of the screen. Now, set the volume control on your projector. The sound level should be adjusted until my voice can be clearly understood in all sections of the room. You are now ready to participate in another Pan-American travel adventure.
In 1519, a Spanish sailor saw this mountain from afar. Montevideo, he cried, meaning, I see a mountain. And to this day, we know the capital of Uruguay as Montevideo. Uruguay, between Brazil and Argentina, is one of the world's purest democracies. The traveler making the grand tour of South America is well advised to pause, to take in the easy, congenial mood of Uruguay's metropolis. Christmas in summertime. South of the equator, the green Christmas is as traditional as the white Christmas in northern lands. If the man can't go to the cafe will come to the man. Coffee will be delivered any time, any place. But coffee is not Uruguay's national drink. That honor goes to mate, the tea made from an herb. The way one takes it is through a silver straw. One feels comfortable in Uruguay. The country is good-natured without being light-headed, intelligent without being ostentatious. Although outwardly a leisurely pace, Montevideo packs and processes meat, catches and cans and freezes fish, ships wool and grain and beef to scores of distant nations. The plaza named for the national hero, Jose Gervasio Artigas, the father of Uruguayan independence. Uruguay's presidential palace houses the hemisphere's only government headed not by a man, but by a committee of 9 executives. If Uruguay's 19th century was turbulent and divisive, her 20th century has been stable and utterly democratic. Her people are mostly of European descent, primarily Spanish and Italian, but also British. Soccer is the game here, as it is in most of South America.
The country has a multi-party political system, which makes the Congress a forum for true democratic competition. Inside the Congressional building, some 30 kinds of marble from the famous national quarries. A woman's head is one of the random forms of the texture. George Bernard Shaw, or so they say. Of many years of hardship, a single moment is frozen in time and stone. La Carreta is one of the America's great monuments. It honors Uruguay's pioneers. Antique wheels are an elegant way to go to the beach. The beach is the front yard for the capital's 1 million people, who comprise in themselves 1/3 of Uruguay's population. Tradition dies hard. Antique cars are held in high esteem. And the auctioneer has the full attention of the audience. First impressions can be wrong. This is not a barrel of beer. It is literally filled with semi-precious stones. The agate, the amethyst, the amethyst and the topaz are embellished, of course, by the jeweler's art. This is not a dollar sign, it means pesos. The price is much less in dollars. Another Uruguayan specialty is fur. The nutria is not bred on farms, but captured in the wilds, making, they say, for better fur. A coat of red antelope is another bargain worth looking into. Nutria comes in white, too. Another item of affluence at a fraction of its price elsewhere in the world. Just outside Montevideo, the cattle country begins with its typical ranch homes or estancias. This is a common sight. The nest, shaped like an old-fashioned oven, gives the oven bird his name. This is one of the world's most truly pastoral lands. Not only meat, but hides and wine, too, are products of the rich countryside. The gauchos here are the genuine article. The way they dress, the way they are, has nothing to do with tourism. So strong is the gaucho imprint on the Uruguayan nation that big city types from Montevideo dress in the traditional costume of a Sunday. A gaucho's full regalia. Another Uruguayan mood at Punta del Este, a haven for writers, artists, and socializing types from all over. Punta del Este is but 2 hours from Montevideo by car, half an hour by plane. The beaches stretch for miles. Good places to store up energy for the casino, polo, the regattas, the film festivals, the deep sea fishing, and all the other fun and games of those who find Uruguayan prices and seascape an irresistible combination. Montevideo at night. The traveler with a taste for new horizons will like Uruguay. There's a sense of belonging here. Many residents of Uruguay are multilingual. Spanish, of course, is their native tongue, but many also speak English, French, and other languages. Carnival time in Uruguay. Pent-up emotions finally unleashed, gay abandon, and the sheer joy of living. This goes on until dawn and lasts a full week.
Just galls me that the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library just like splices in their little title credit. But anyways, what a amazing film. Really, really good. I don't know what I was trying to say. Fascinating, fantastic, fanastic. And some people said that they thought Jim Backus was at the beginning during that little title leader I don't think it is. I think it was someone impersonating Mr. Magoo. It wasn't really Jim Backus. But yeah, that was great. What a great way to start off your weekend, I hope. Thank you so much to Burrow Owl for donating in the comments via the super thanks button. And also thank you to Jim Palmer for donating via the ko-fi.com/avgeeks. Those are both great ways to support us financially so that we can do things like buy white tape, or we can buy reels, hard drives, shelves, archival film cans. All these things are things that we purchase. And also coffee, too, because, caffeine is what AV Geeks runs on, is delicious coffee. So, anyways, I hope everybody has a great weekend. If you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up or the like button. You can also watch other things that we put on the AV Geeks channel. Those usually have ads on them, of which we get pennies when you watch or skip over. So, thanks again. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday. Everybody take care. As always, I heart films, and I hope you do too. Please rewind, love each other, and we'll see you Monday. Take care. Bye.